Welcome to Between the Sheets, the non-judgmental podcast where we're going to cover various sexual health and wellness topics. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Zwonitzer. I'm a urology and sexual health nurse practitioner, and I love helping my patients and listeners discover and develop their most satisfying sexual experiences. Between the Sheets is here to normalize the conversations about sexual health and cover everything from basic anatomy to the most taboo topics and everything in between. Real talk, real pleasure, one episode at a time. So come on, let's get between the sheets. This episode is sponsored by Boston Scientific and its educational website on erectile dysfunction, edcure.com. One study estimated that more than 50% of men over the age of 40 have some degree of erectile dysfunction, which can be frustrating and confusing. Go to edcure.com to find information on erectile dysfunction and treatment options, including long-term treatment options offered by Boston Scientific. Boston Scientific does not endorse any statements or opinions expressed during this episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Between the Sheets. We are happy to have you here today, and we are also happy to have our esteemed guest today. I have with us Christina Braver. She is amazing. She is an author and in the romance novel genre, and she believes that quality sex education is not universal. And by reading romance, it can be some people's only exposure to have some healthy sexual relationships, learn about women's sexual pleasure and how we should focus on that. Sexy toys, dirty talk, tips, all the kinds of fun stuff that she can fit in her book that maybe we don't find other places. So welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So this is awesome because they're, for many reasons, need arousal before they can be in the mood with their partner, with themselves, whatever. And one of the great ways to do that is reading romance novels. And I agree with your point on education because you might not think something sounds sexy until you read it. And then you're like, maybe that does turn me on. And then you can talk about it with your partner or you can explore it yourself. I love this genre.
Absolutely. Exactly. I think a lot of people can explore new ideas through reading romance novels. Like it's safe. It's a safe space. I talk a lot about fantasy. Fantasy is involved a lot in reading romance and writing romance. And sometimes we think fantasies are taboo things, or it's usually like it's dirty or it's kinky or it's something that we shouldn't be thinking about. It's bad, it's wrong. It's certainly if we grew up in culture of sexual shame culture, that sort of shamed our sexual ideas and thoughts and feelings, we can feel like it's bad. And we don't want to I would not want to have a conversation with my partner about, oh my gosh, what if they thought, I was into this weird thing or whatever. But through reading a romance novel, you can kind of explore it. We read things, reading something. 'Cause neuroscientists tell us that when we read something, our brain lights up very similar to if we're actually experiencing it. Or when we watch a TV or a movie, our brain lights up in a similar way than if we were actually doing that thing. Like when you go to a scary movie and everyone's, in the front, it's scared. You're sitting in suburbia probably, or you're sitting safely in a movie theater watching this movie, but your body thinks what's happening on the screen is happening to you. And it's a little bit of the same thing when you read something. You do get a little bit of that experience, and you do get a little bit of that surprise that, wait, I'm reading about this, and this is kind of turning me on. Why is this turning me on? What do I like about this? And a lot of times it's not something. A lot of people think that because 50 Shades of Grey had a lot of BDSM in it, that people who liked 50 Shades of Grey like BDSM, but not really. It was about an obsessed partner, which is not safe in real life, but someone who loves me so much that they change their life, right? That's a fantasy. Again, not safe in real life, but super fun to experience. So how can I bring that? I know I like this. I know this turns me on. How can I bring that to my safe relationship, my safe partner? Those kinds of conversations. Yeah. So romance can get us exploring new ideas in a safer, more approachable way than for me to just go to my partner and say, so I would really like for you to act like you're obsessed with me because that just would turn me on. So, really, that would be sort of, our partners would probably be like, okay, let's talk about that. but, it's still an awkward conversation.
Yeah, it can be. So, one of the things too that I like to have people do, whether it's listening to the podcast, reading a book, whatever, is if you find something that intrigues you like that, share it with your partner and be like, hey, read this section of the book because I was surprised that it actually kind of turned me on and I want to know what you think. And that really
Mhm,
takes some of that. I want to try this. Something like that out of that conversation is like, hey,
mhm,
read this and let's talk about it. Listen to this podcast. Let's talk about it because you're right. A lot of times it's scary to talk to your partner about something that you haven't tried before. And their mind immediately goes to, well, what made you think of that? Who did you try that with? Or something like that? And if you say, like, look, I read it in this book, it's right here, that
mhm,
kind of can settle them down and know, okay, you're not cheating on me. You're not out there, watching 20 hours of porn a day, something like that, where you're coming
right.
up with these ideas. It is very innocent and safe the way that you're doing it.
Exactly, and the books that I write are dual POV, which so I have a chapter in the female perspective. I write cisgender straight, because that's what I am, but, I have a chapter that's in the female perspective and a chapter that's in the male perspective, and I say to couples, read them together
Mm,
and then talk about what you both like, because and it could be even saying, "You know what, I really liked it when he did this," or, "I really didn't like it when he did
mhm,
this." Like, this part of this game that they're playing, I didn't really like that. It's a safe way to give a cue to your partner, particularly if you are the woman talking to your male partner. Patriarchy culture today tells
mhm.
men they're supposed to know everything about sex. They're supposed to pass a calculus test without
Yep,
ever going to class, right?
yep,
They're supposed to know everything about sex. They're not supposed to ask questions. They're supposed to be great at it. And so giving feedback that is less good or less positive can really impacts some men's
mhm,
ego, psyche, confidence. So having a way to say, I really like this game that they were playing here. I really like what they were doing here, but I didn't like this part of it. It might be better if he was doing maybe this or that. That's easier to say than if you're trying these things out with your partner and your partner might be doing things that you don't like. That's an easier way to cushion the blow, just because I do think, like I say, particularly for men, because the expectation that they are sort of immersed in from birth is so pervasive that they really are supposed to know everything and be good at it.
mhm.
And that's a road to walk. And so anything that we can do to sort of help give that feedback in a way that we let them know this is something I like that's maybe not so direct to them, that can be helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Tell me a little bit about your books. What are you right, I know you said cisgendered heterosexual, which is fine. I mean, I would probably write the same because that's what I am. It
Right.
doesn't mean we don't support
Right.
all the things. And
Exactly.
so tell me a little bit about what someone can experience reading your books. Are they really graphic? Are they not really graphic? Is there a love story with it? What can people expect?
Absolutely. So they're romances, they follow all the beats. They're what's called steamy romance. So there's a little bit of a line between what we call steamy romance and or open door and erotica.
Okay.
Erotica is less of a plot, less of a story. Most of the action happens in intimate settings and situations.
Okay.
And erotica is absolutely a valid genre.
Mhm.
It's or subgenre. It's not what I write specifically. I do write steamy, what's called open door. So you are in the room. The reader is in the room with the couple when they are having intimate experiences. So I use all the language.
Mhm.
There are curse words in there. There's dirty talk. There's
Yeah.
all the things, right? But there is absolutely a story, absolutely a romance. I try to have one of the things that we do as writers, we try to have external goals, internal goals, and I try to have one of those at least be something related to sex or
Mhm.
intimacy. So, for example, in my most recent novel, the heroine, the female main character, has trouble orgasming with a partner, which
Mm.
is something that's pretty common. She had
Yeah.
a fairly common traumatic experience in college, and it's really sort of made her feel less confident in her body. So giving herself over to pleasure in the presence of a man is difficult for her. And
Okay.
again, something that's pretty common, I
Mhm.
think, for a lot of women. And then there's also women struggle to orgasm. Some women struggle to orgasm,
Yeah.
period. And then you
Right.
have men running around, you have men kind of watching porn thinking, all I have to do is pound her, 3 or 4 times and it's going to be great. Right.
Right.
And you're like, oh, no, no. So
Yep.
much misinformation. So one of the things, because that's such a common struggle, I included that as one of the wounds that my heroine struggles with,
Mm,
and that her partner is not intimidated by that. And he
mm.
doesn't see it as his problem to solve necessarily, that
Yeah.
orgasm doesn't have to be the only goal
Yeah.
of an intimate connection, right? So he certainly has those internal conversations with himself, like, gosh, I'd really like to make her come. And,
Mhm.
I'd like to be that guy. Wow. Of course, I'd like to be that guy. But he sort of stops himself and he recognizes that, okay, this is some of my programming.
Right.
What I need to focus on is making her feel good and making her feel safe and then,
Mhm.
enjoying myself in there. So there's times when he comes first or
Yep.
he's the only one that comes, which seems a little taboo in romance novels. We're not supposed to do that. She's supposed to come
Right.
first and then he comes and or they come together.
Right.
It's just
Yeah. The
so
ultimate boy.
right, right. I mean, it's possible. I had someone ask me like if coming together was actually possible, and I said, "Well, I can only speak about a study that includes one couple, and I can say that
Yeah.
it is possible.
It is. It
You
is.
know,
It's just rare. It's
it's
rare.
just rare, right? It's not. It shouldn't be the goal. So, anyway, so I think that's kind of what I'm exploring in that book. Some of my other books I have a book called Your Turn where the heroine is a sexual shame culture survivor. And so
Mm.
she's really struggling to deal with these feelings that she's having. She's left that world and she wants to have a healthy sexual relationship. She meets a man, he's a little bit older, he's divorced. He actually is divorced because his partner wanted him to do some things that he wasn't comfortable with,
Mm.
which it's a little bit of a turn. Like, I try to twist things a little bit,
Yeah.
flip them a little bit unexpected. So, his partner wanted him to do some things he wasn't comfortable with. She ended up having an affair because he
Mm.
wasn't able to be comfortable doing things she needed
Sure.
or wanted. They weren't able to negotiate that out. I think they just didn't have the language and the
Mhm.
connection. So that relationship ended. And so he's got a little bit of a wound about sex.
Yeah.
She's got a wound about sex. And so together they try to figure out how to have a healthy relationship on that meets both their needs. So
Yeah.
it's kind of they all have something similar. My first book, the heroine she's a survivor of endometriosis. And so she
Mm.
had severe endometriosis, had to have a hysterectomy, and she meets this guy, I'm sorry, she had to have a hysterectomy. So, as we know, endometriosis causes really painful sex.
Mhm.
And so she didn't have a very good experience with sex.
Mhm.
And she's like, well, I can't have this. I can't have babies. I can't have a family,
Mhm.
so I'm going to go figure out what all the fuss is about with sex. And she meets this guy and he's kind of thinks he knows everything about sex. He's had a lot of sex. And so, of course, he knows everything, right? Well, she's a little different. She's a little more
Yeah.
complicated. He can't just do the same things he's always done. And she's just going
Mhm.
to, be safe and come.
Right.
Those are the kinds of things that I explore in my books. But they're swoony, they're romance, there's absolutely an external plot, a
Yeah.
story that's not related to the sex, but there is I really try to focus a lot of energy on helping people who have these experiences feel seen in the
Yeah.
stories.
No, that's amazing. Every topic that you just talked about are things patients come and see me for. They are issues that truly are seen, are experienced every day. And you're right, they're not in normal books, they're not in movies. You don't see women having pain with sex in a rom com on Hallmark?
I don't. It's true.
So I love that you're allowing these women to be seen and these issues to be explored in a very positive way. And, I'm sure your books have good outcomes for these people and things like that. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So it gives them hope. It gives them something to work towards. And that tool, like we talked about, like, hey, read this book because this is a lot of what I experience. I can see myself in this character. I want you to kind of have a better understanding of where I'm coming from. I think that's
Mm,
just amazing that you're able to do that and to make it a genuine story as well that someone
mhm.
wants to read.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I believe is that if we write these stories people think that that's the only if we read a certain kind of story, a certain kind of hero or heroine, people might think that those are the only people that deserve pleasure.
Mm.
Those are the only people that are sexy. So a few years ago, there was a big reckoning in the romance genre around racism and sexism and genderism. And so a lot kind of broke open. And now we have a much more diverse readership and
Mhm.
writership in romance. And so part of the issue with that was that if we wrote romance novels only about cisgender, white, straight women who are thin, tall, with long blonde hair and blue eyes, big boobs and a little waist,
Yeah.
that we might think that if we don't look like that, we're not sexy.
Mhm.
If we don't have a magical experience and come with our partner, we might be doing it wrong. What's wrong with
Mhm.
me that I can't do it the way all these books say this? Why can't I do what's happening in all of these books? And people can feel like there's something wrong with them.
Mhm.
And so the romance genre really tried to change what our heroines look like. We didn't. We still have some work to do on our heroes, which is a little
Yeah.
bit of my pet peeve. But the point was so that people could be seen and know that all people of shapes, all sizes, all genders, all
Mhm.
orientations deserve pleasure, deserve love, and we want to reflect that in the stories that we tell. Like I said, we do have a little bit of a pet peeve with our male heroes. Everybody seems to be tall and have washboard abs and a
Right.
giant penis that
Yeah.
doesn't hurt. And
Right.
I am like, this is a unicorn. So
Right.
I'm not saying that that man doesn't exist. I'm sure he's out there in the same way that cisgender, straight, skinny, white, blonde women exist and deserve pleasure. This guy who is tall and cut and has a giant dick that he knows what to do with, he's out there.
Yep.
He's just not out there as much as we might think he's out there in
Yeah.
books. And, a lot of times there's this myth that bigger is better. In reality, bigger is not better.
Correct.
And I'm so frustrated that we put this message out in books a lot that he has this giant dick and it feels great and we don't have to use lube and we can have sex 20 minutes later after we had sex with a giant dick. These
Right.
things don't have, these are just biological
Right.
rarities. I mean, having a giant dick, research tells us that about like less than 2% of men have a dick that's bigger than 7.7.5 inches,
Right.
essentially.
Right.
Less than 2% of men have a dick this size, yet every romance novel
Right.
hero seems to have a dick this size. So I don't want to send the message to women that this is a magical thing or
Mhm.
that there's something wrong with their partner. If they're not experiencing pleasure at sex, it must be because my partner's not big enough. That's not true.
Yeah.
I don't think women think that, but
Yeah.
I don't want us to start thinking that. And
Yeah.
I think men do.
Yeah.
Men do think that if I can't please her, it's because my dick's not big enough. And
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with your dick size. Um, Almost always, like
Right.
99.9% of the time, it is
Right.
not to do with your dick size at all. So I struggle with that. I have such a heart for men, and I see the sort of messages that they're receiving, and so I wanna try to change that, and my little corner of the world is writing romance novels, so that's where I
Yeah.
try to change it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I just had a guy this past week in a 29-year-old come in and he was very concerned because his penis doesn't feel like it's as big as it should be. He feels like it's the same size it was when he was a teenager, and all of this. And, it's difficult in that setting as a patient provider relationship to be like, "Your dick's fine, man, like, you're good." But, like, you have to kinda say that in a way too
Uh,
because that's literally what he came in for is, "I think my
right.
dick's too small." And, he was a very strong, attractive young man, and,
Mhm.
I think he was having a lot of anxiety going into sexual relationships because of this. And I had that conversation, the average penis is 5.5 inches. And if you're anywhere close to that, you're good. Because that means 50% of men are smaller than that. If five and a
Mhm.
half is the average, that means 50% are smaller. So you're okay.
Oh,
And,
mhm.
women don't need that big of a penis and things like that. Like what you're taught in like the social context of society about what women want in a penis is just so not true. Anything bigger than 8 or 9 inches is painful, and you're probably
Mhm.
painful at 8 or 9 inches too, depending on who you're
Absolutely.
with. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
and
insane.
even bigger, you could like 6 inches, depending on your partner,
Mhm.
you it can all be painful for your partner, right?
Absolutely.
And so being aware of that, knowing that being a good lover is something, it is a skill to be learned. It is
Mhm.
something you can learn how to do. And there are so many quality resources out there, but we don't talk about them. We don't.
Yep.
There's books, there's omgyes.com from the
Yes.
Kinsey Institute that is just I tell
Fabulous.
everybody, it's so fabulous, and I tell
Yes.
like, if you have a vulva, if you are interested in pleasing a vulva owner, this is your first stop. Like,
Yeah.
go to this website and learn.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
like
such
Netflix
quality.
for vulvas.
It is, it's even better. Like, it's just so much better. I have been having sex with the same partner for how long have I been married? 30 years. Like I've been having,
Yeah.
sex with the same person for 30 years. And we still learn things on that site. Like
Mhm.
we still find things like, right, that's right. Let's read this. And then, oh, that's right. Yeah, we do need to try that. Or you're
Yeah.
right. That is probably why I'm struggling with this part. Or, all the different things. So it's such a great resource. I can't talk about it enough. But there's so many things out there for men to help educate them about how to be a good lover. Also, there's a lot of there's some resources out there. I just finished a book by Kenneth Play called Beyond Satisfied, which I don't know if
Mhm.
you're familiar with the book.
Yeah.
It was, he is a layperson, but it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But what I really took away from that book was he is so confident about getting the message out to men that it is not about dick size. And in a lot of ways, an average dick is better. One, because it doesn't hurt. You can,
Mhm.
if you have an average size dick or a little bit smaller, you're having sex. You can have sex with that dick 20 minutes later, and then 20 minutes after that, and
Yeah.
then, an hour after that. You can have sex all weekend with a dick that's that size, but if you're really big, you can't have sex all weekend
Mhm.
with that dick. You're gonna have to get creative because penetration is not
Yep.
is it's gonna be kind of less option,
Yeah.
less, you're gonna have that less often.
Yeah.
So there's so much information out there, and I really hope that men will take advantage of it. Well, I'd love to create a safe space for men to feel like they can ask these questions and they
Yeah.
can read this information. Because again, it's just like women get under the to be able to have to get under the covers to read their romance novel with the bodice ripper,
Yes.
cover.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like men are underneath the covers reading these books that tell
Yeah.
them, here's how to please a woman, kind of.
Right.
It's not something to be ashamed of. It's actually something that I think is super sexy. A guy that's willing to read a book and learn how to make me feel better in bed is
Yes. Amazing.
goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's a
want that
great
guy.
quality. Yeah, it's a great quality. I think that's
Absolutely.
amazing. And you're right that there's just not enough support out there for that and quality education because they go watch porn. These guys have massive dicks. They're using things to get that size. They're using implants, they're using injections and things like that, and camera angles and all of these things. But yeah, I think it's so important to normalize using lube, normalize having other things besides penetrative sex. You don't have to have penetrative sex, to have intimacy. You can take that completely off the table and have one of your best sessions ever.
Absolutely. I in my most recent book, I do write a session where they don't have penetrative sex, and it is good, and she is able to orgasm with
Uh-huh.
him. Because he is going
Yeah.
down on her, which is a really common way that a lot
Uh-huh.
of women are able to orgasm. And so that happens, they have that experience, and here's this thing she can't do, and she is able to do it, and it
Uh-huh.
had nothing to do with penetration. And I think that's really important and can be a magical thing. So I just like I said, my heart goes out to men. A lot of the information that they're getting is not helpful. It's making
Uh-huh.
them feel badly about themselves, and it's not necessary. And I hope that we can find a way to change that message.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what you're saying is so great too, because the books that you're writing, yes, your heroine is a female and things like that, but they're available for the guys to read too. And, there's so many ways that we can read now with Kindles and different things like that, that you don't necessarily have to carry around a book, and you're sitting in the tire repair shop with this novel and every other guy in there is looking at you like, why in the hell are you reading a romance novel at the tire shop? Like, you can put it on your Kindle and nobody knows what you're reading.
Magic. It's wonderful. Yeah, you can put a romance novel on your Kindle. You can put a sex education book on your
Mhm.
Kindle. Like you can listen to it on audio.
Yes.
Nobody has to know. This can be your little secret. Absolutely. That's one of the great things about one of the great technological advances.
Yeah.
The invention of e-readers, research told us that the invention of e-readers caused the romance industry to explode more than any
Interesting.
other genre, exponentially more
Yeah.
than any other genre. And I think that's because now anyone could read a romance novel.
Mhm.
Before, like I said, it was women reading them, hiding
Yep.
in the underneath the covers or
Yes.
something they had to do at home where no one would see them, right? And then you had
Right.
e-readers, and now anybody and everybody can read whatever they want, wherever they want. And
Yeah.
so readership really exploded. And it is something that I do hope that men will read more. And it's
Mhm.
again, it's not certainly not perfect. I think if I were a man, well, I can relate to it a little bit because when I read those stories, those older stories where the woman is perfect,
Mhm.
that sometimes, I have to sort of set that aside and say, I'm old enough to know, no, that's a perfection. I
Right.
don't have to be like that to be sexy.
Right.
And so I hope that men who are reading romance novels and the dude has a big dick and she loves it and she can't shut up about it and blah blah blah. I hope they can sort of set that aside and recognize that that's not really the point of the
Yeah.
story. I do whenever I do encourage men to read romance novels. I'm always a little bit so caution, a little bit
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
caution, and also like I also I encourage men to think about. You have to look a little bit beyond the surface. Again,
Mhm.
like 50 Shades of Grey, women loved it, so women must want to be tied up. No, not necessarily. Let's talk about why women like it. What are
Mhm.
the fantasies? And 50 Shades of Grey in particular leans into four very common female fantasies. One, to be completely taken care of.
Mhm.
When I read 50 Shades of Grey, my kids were in elementary school and early middle school, and if you don't know the story, what happened, they just see each other on the weekend,
Mhm.
and for that weekend that she is with him, all she has to do is what he tells her to do.
Mhm.
She doesn't have to make any decisions, so she can't make the wrong one, and he takes care of everything. And I said to my husband, I was like, somebody that comes in on the weekend and takes care of, like, everything, I might be willing to do some kinky shit for that guy.
Yeah. That's
And
right.
not and I don't really want that in my real life. I mean, I like my agency, I like my rights, I like
Yeah.
my voice, but the fantasy of someone coming in and solving all my problems for
Yes.
48 hours just kinda sounds magical sometimes.
Yep.
So what is that fantasy that women want? As you when you read a romance novel, and another popular fantasy that was also highlighted in 50 Shades of Grey is the bad boy redeemed,
Mhm.
which again, not safe in real life. You have these women who meet this guy and he kind of is not a nice person. And then through their love, he becomes a nice person. It's not a great message. A lot of women want that to happen. And I totally understand. Women are the heroes of that story.
Mhm.
If it's fiction or in real life,
Yep.
women get to be the heroes. Here's this person that was bad who chose to be good because of
Mhm.
me. And how wow, what a
Yep.
great feeling that must be, right? But it's very rare.
Yep.
If a man doesn't like women, he's probably not gonna change his mind about women because of a woman.
Right.
So, that's just kind of so it is a very popular fantasy, that bad boy redeemed, but why is that so popular? Like, guys I think some guys hear this story and they think, "Well, women only like people that treat them like shit." And it's like, "Well, no, not really. We don't really wanna be treated like shit.
Right.
What we wanna do is so lovable that this person becomes a better
Mhm.
person for me.
Yeah.
That's what
We
we
wanna
really
fix
want."
it.
We wanna fix it in the same way that men wanna
Mhm.
fix things. That's
Yep.
what culture tells them they have to be fixers. A lot of women, we want to be fixers. We want to be so loved and so lovable and so sexy and necessary that this person changes who they are and becomes a better person in the world in order to be worthy of me.
Mhm.
Like, wow, that
Yeah.
feels great. So how do I help my partner if I'm a man, how do I help my partner have that feeling without me
Mhm.
actually being an asshole? Like,
Right.
how do I you know, like,
Yes.
I'm a good person, I do good things. I don't wanna become an asshole just so I could be sexier to her.
Right.
What do I need to do? And maybe you go, far enough to the point of role play. Maybe you
Mhm.
set up a scene where you are the asshole and you do things or you tell her that you've done things, but you wanna be different for her. You have this whole
Mhm.
conversation. Maybe you do a role play. Maybe it just is as simple as being vulnerable and letting her know, I want to be a better man. That movie line, I
Yeah.
want to be a better man for you.
Yep.
I love you. I respect you. I want to be worthy of you. I'm so happy to be with you. I'm so
Mm.
proud to be with you. And I want to be the guy that's good enough for you. And so every
Yeah.
day when I get up, I go to work, I do the things that I do, I come home, uh, I want to be the guy. When I come home, I want to know that I deserve to be there with you
Mm.
because you're so great. I mean,
Yeah.
these are just words, and
Mhm.
and for the most part, a lot of guys probably feel these things, they just aren't able to articulate them to their partner,
Yeah.
and I think, that's so tragic. If we can
Mhm.
a lot of guys are doing exactly what they need to do. This gentleman that came into your office, concerned about his penis size, likely has a perfectly wonderful penis,
Mhm.
fully capable of pleasing women, maybe more so than someone with a big dick. But he doesn't know that. That's not the message he's received.
Yep.
And he doesn't know how to articulate and ask his partner for feedback about
Yeah.
that. And if he did, sometimes partners, they don't know how to articulate it either. Because as
Mhm.
women, we're taught that we're not supposed to like it. We're not
Right.
supposed to be sexually adventurous. We're not supposed to want it. We're
Mhm.
not supposed to want it more than our male partners.
Right.
We're a lot of those things we're sort of shamed into being,
Mhm.
that's dirty, that's slutty, that's
Mhm.
all of those things, those negative words.
Yep.
So there's so much messaging out there. I really want to try to change that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense because I agree with you. And I think there's a lot of patients that come into my office for issues with performance anxiety. Women who I don't get wet enough. I don't, like using lube is such a bad thing. No, it's not. It's great. Use it. I think
Absolutely.
so if they have these books and other things that normalize this, I think that's amazing. You're doing such a great service. Do you have any characters that are more closer to middle age, like perimenopause and kind of going into those later phases of life?
I don't have a full-size novel. I do have a short story that has an older couple, and I hope to write a full-length story. The story just hasn't come to me yet.
Okay.
It might be a little bit too close to my real life, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. But one of the things that I accented in that story, yes, is the use of lube,
Uh-huh.
and her body
Yeah.
doesn't she's not 25 anymore.
Yep.
Her boobs are not where they used to be, and
Yep.
and he's such a sweet, he's just, in a way, he's just kind of happy to be there. Like,
Yeah.
he's happy to be, I think that he's like in his early 60s. He's just happy to be able to, he's healthy, so he's still able to get it up without
Mhm.
taking a pill, although there's nothing wrong with
Correct.
needing that. Absolutely. In the same way that a lot of women need vibrators,
Uh-huh.
certainly as we get older, using a vibrator is a little bit more of a reliable
Uh-huh.
source. So I do have an older couple, and they do use lube, and they do use vibrator. Actually, all my couples use vibrators, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. That's a ageless tool.
Right.
I read
Absolutely.
somewhere someone said, that people feel, "Oh, I'm getting addicted to my vibrator."
Mm.
It's like, well, let's think about that. I read a comparison. An author said, "Would anyone accuse a carpenter of being addicted to a drill because he chooses that every time instead of using a screwdriver? Would we say the carpenter's addicted to the drill, or is the carpenter just using the tool that gets the job
Mhm.
done better?" So it's difficult. So I struggle a little bit with that addiction to vibrator. Maybe what you're addicted to is having an orgasm. That might be
Right.
what you're addicted to. You're not
Yeah.
addicted to your
Yeah.
vibrator.
And there is
Don't blame the
some
messenger.
Right. There is some truth to using a vibrator and then having difficulty when you don't use a vibrator because you get used to those increased sensations and vibrations that none of our fingers can or tongues can replicate, right? But
Mhm.
that doesn't necessarily mean you're addicted. Again, that's just the tool that for you works really well. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
I think that it is so important that we get the message out there that using these other tools, they don't even necessarily need to be toys. They're just tools, in my opinion, to have better sex, to get better orgasms, which at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to feel good. We want the best
Mhm.
orgasms we can get.
Exactly. And, one of the things that I think in that book that Kenneth Clay wrote called Beyond Satisfied, that one of the things he talks about is that it really doesn't matter what size I am because I can get a toy, I can get a tool
Mhm.
that is whatever size she wants.
Yep.
And and I'm with her when we're using it together. I'm the
Mhm.
one that's inserting it. I'm the one that's there. Really
Yeah.
normalizes that. It doesn't matter what size I am because I can
Yep.
always find if she prefers a larger size, I can find a tool
Yep.
that's exactly the size she wants. And I try to emphasize that using tools together, using toys
Mhm.
together is not a replacement.
Right.
I once had an older gentleman, ask me about, well, do you think that toys are a replacement for men in the bedroom? And I said, look, if you can be replaced by a toy, you need to take a look at what you're doing in the bedroom. Because,
Yeah.
like, if that's all you're bringing to the table, you're missing the point a little bit. So
Right.
let's rewind and think about what is your role. A toy can't hold her. A toy can't tell her she's
Mhm.
beautiful. A toy can't kiss her, touch her, stroke her skin. A toy can't enjoy pleasure because of her. Like
Right.
a toy can't receive that joy and pleasure from her. Like there's a lot that you can bring to the table that only you or bring to the bed that
Mhm.
only you as her partner can bring. This is
Right.
just a thing over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because in my urology world, have a lot of older gentlemen who have had various health issues, prostate cancer, other things where they really, really struggle to get erections. And maybe they can't take Viagra and Cialis because they have heart conditions or they're allergic to it or whatever.
Mhm,
Maybe they aren't at a point where they can go through the surgery for a penile prosthesis, whatever it is. And when I have these men come in and they are willing to talk to me about other tools to be able to satisfy their wife. Penis sleeves, extenders. I even have one guy who actually went and bought a strap on, and we talked about what to look for in a high quality one and all these things because they want that intimacy. They don't want to be replaced by something else. They want to use themselves in a way that can continue to please their partner. And it makes me so excited for them when they can come in and
mhm,
talk to me about this and we brainstorm and we figure out ways for them to still have that intimacy because it's a huge blow not only to their ego but to their relationship when they can't get erections. You know, women have it a little easier. We can throw some lube on there and still function, but men's body part in and of itself has to function correctly to
mhm,
have quality penetration, not necessarily to achieve orgasm or things like that. There's other things you can do with a more flaccid penis, but for penetration, which for a lot of people is very important. And so I love when I can have these conversations and kind of normalize that. And so I love that that's what your books do too, is kind of take these
mhm,
more taboo topics or these really stressful and hurtful situations in these relationships and kind of normalize it and say, look, you're not
mhm,
the only one. We have a lot of people that deal with this.
mhm. I think back, women, we feel like our breast size is very
Uh-huh.
important for whether or not we're sexy, and we can
Yep.
get breast implants if we feel like
Mhm.
we need that. I'm not necessarily advising for that. You do you, but a lot of times women, they can augment their body
Mhm.
if they feel like they have to. Penile augmentation is not it's not as easy and it's
No.
not as successful and it's not so then I sort of put myself in the position of a man. So I have this body part that defines me in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. Um, I'm supposed to be tough. Do I have the balls to do this work?
Yep.
Man up, and get it, quit when someone's aggressive. We tell them
Mhm.
that they're swinging their dick around. Put your dick away, man. You know.
Yep.
So this body part that is defines a lot of masculinity. Um, Something that men compare with other men.
Mhm.
I think research tells us that for every one time a woman Googles dick size, 170 men Google dick size. Like,
Oh my goodness.
like men are concerned about this, right?
Yep.
And so now I'm a young man. I figured it out, and now I'm getting older, and it doesn't work anymore. This
Mhm.
thing that has defined me is letting me down and
Yep.
is not doing what I want it to do anymore. And I think women, we can relate to that a little bit with menopause and our
Yeah.
bodies and the hormone fluctuations that we have. When I
Mhm.
went through menopause, I just really remember feeling like my body is letting me down. And
Mhm.
I went through the time of didn't want to have sex with my partner. And my poor partner feeling rejected, thinking it was him, because we didn't have the information. We didn't understand what I
Right.
was going through was largely hormonal and related to going through menopause. That I didn't know that depression and anxiety and even to the point of suicidal ideation comes a lot with menopause. But that's
Yeah.
actually pretty common. I did not know
Yeah.
that. We don't know that. We're not putting that
Yep.
out in the world and we need to. And in this low sex drive. And so
Mhm.
my husband, he sometimes people, "Oh, your husband is so great." He is great. He went out and read books about he was the one that went out and said, "Okay, what's going on with my wife that she doesn't want to have sex with me?" And he's the one that brought a lot of information that then got me to talk to my naturopath, that got me to
Mhm.
and people's like, "Oh, your husband is so great." I'm like, "He is great, but let's be clear, he wanted to have sex."
Yeah.
So he was gonna figure out how to make that happen or bust trying. So,
Right.
and he's a scientist, so research, this
Yes.
is what he does. So, I went through a lot of that, and so I can identify with that idea that my body is no longer doing what I want it to do. I'm no longer young, virile, sexy, beautiful. I'm not those things anymore because my body is not doing what I want it to do. And I imagine men feel very similar things when they start to get older.
Mhm.
And I think we can be sensitive to that. And it is great when men are able to sort of move past that shame that is external,
Mhm.
that comes from external teaching,
Yep.
and really identify with the person that they are and the value that they bring to the relationship, and recognize that while penetration with your body is important, I don't want to diminish that, but it isn't the only thing, and it
Yep.
isn't the most important thing. And there are ways to make that possible and better.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
I men, God bless them.
Yes. No, I have a soft spot for them too for many of the same reasons. This is just such a fun conversation, and I just appreciate your work so much and your
Thank you.
knowledge too. I don't have a lot of author friends in my life, and so it's really cool for me to experience your knowledge level on this, that you're not just rolling out these books without thought, that there's truly the knowledge and the thought behind it, and you're so conscious of that. It's amazing. Christina, thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for being here. Please tell everybody how they can find your books and be in touch with you.
The best way to be in touch with me and to find information about my books and what I do is on my website, which is ChristinaBraver.com, which Christina is spelled with a CH. I have a resources tab where I list some of my favorite sexual health reads. So, and there's a lot of them there, and they're not even all that I've read. They're just the ones that I really like, and it can be overwhelming. But there's a lot of great resources there. So I encourage people to go to my resources tab. I also have a blog tab where I kind of just write some short things. I have blog posts about how bigger is not better, how to have a holiday quickie, just a lot of different things and observations there that are a little bit easier, quicker to read, just some short snippets. And then there's information there about my books, my romance
Awesome.
novels are there too. And then I'm available on all the platforms, Amazon, Kobo, Barnes and Noble. You can get my books there.
Excellent. I don't know about the rest of the listeners, but I am definitely going to run and find me some Christina Braver books because they sound amazing. And I'm excited to do that. And we will certainly put your website in the show notes as well so everyone can find you and read your books as well. Thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I love to talk about this stuff, and I really hope that we've spoken to at least some of your listeners
Yeah.
today, and that there's some men out there that will feel confident and go and explore and learn a little bit and know that they are necessary and loved just the way that they are, and bring some of that confidence into the bedroom for their partner for the betterment of the world. Let's save
Yes.
the world.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. As always, I appreciate you listening and go have some fun between the sheets. Thank you for joining us and exploring sexual health topics here on Between the Sheets. New episodes are available every Wednesday. Please subscribe and rate our podcast so we can reach more listeners. And don't forget to tell your friends, partners, and anyone who will listen about Between the Sheets. Send any comments, questions, or stories to podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. It's all one word, podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and go have some fun between the sheets.